Winter 2026's anime lineup would already be too insane to handle without adding a single new show to the pile, but the world just isn't that kind to us, I'm sorry to say. There's a lot of really good new anime as well. Lucky for you, I'm here to watch literally all of them and help you decide what's most worth the small fraction of your precious time that hasn't already been eaten by all the sequels and spin-offs I covered last week. A couple of which are also here, but not nearly enough to create any kind of meaningfully time-saving overlap. We've all just got to accept at this point that none of us are sleeping until spring. Maybe summer. But either way, me talking about it ain't saving you any more time, so these are the ones to watch for Winter 2026, brought to you by Zenless Zone Zero, the fast and smooth free-to-play character action sensation that just added its strongest character ever, Ye Shunguan, a next-generation Void Hunter chosen to bear the double-edged power of the Qingming Sword, who can shift between two forms with complementary power sets and contrasting girl-next-door-ish personalities to dominate the battlefield and your heart. She's not the only new waifu in the game, though, and not only is the adorable S-ranked ass-kicker Zhao a lot less heart-wrenchingly tragic, except the part of her character profile that says she likes eating grass and tries to hide it. No one should have to hide their passions like that. She's also totally free for anyone who logs into the game right now. Just one of the many, quote, best rewards ever that Hoyoverse is offering to players during version 2.5, where you can accumulate top-ups to select and redeem multiple benefits, including another free S-rank agent of your choice, an S-rank W engine, a wide variety of swaggy cosmetics, and more. And that's still not all. New users who download the game can claim 160 free pulls just for signing up, and by redeeming the code on screen, you can get an additional 60 polychrome and 6,666 Denny. Just click the link in the doobly-doo to download Zenless Zone Zero or find it on your console store of choice and start playing the best action game money can't buy today. If you're a fan of over-the-top anime action, or free-to-play mobile games for that matter, I'm willing to bet you're already familiar with the Fate franchise, but if you're somehow not, the new anime Fate Strange Fake offers a great chance to finally change that. Based on a series of light novels by the creator of Baccano, Strange Fake finally brings the third most convoluted death game in Japanese multimedia to Ryogo Narita's favorite place to write about people horribly mutilating each other in: America!
America! Yeah! What you gonna do when we come for you? McDonald's! Yeah! Yeah! Internet! Yeah! Slavery! Yeah!
This brings a chance to look at some of the most iconic heroes of Fate lore through a distinctly American lens, while the fake nature of this particular Holy Grail war opens the door to many new servants we've never seen before. And the setting also allows the war to get a little bit political, both in a global sense, what with it having been orchestrated by upstart American mages connected to the government in opposition to the magic hegemony of London's clock tower, and a more localized one with a Native American contingent that very much does not appreciate those magic cops using their homeland for a game of Magic Fortnite. Of course, the tower has its own machinations at play as well, as do many of the major mage families, the church, of course, and even darker forces lurking at the periphery of the magic world, not to mention a few hapless individuals with more personal ambitions or just the poor luck to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, just like every other Grail war. There's a lot going on here, to the point it's kind of overwhelming, but if you are new to Fate, don't worry, that's kind of just how the series is. It's a little less overwhelming if you start with the OG visual novel, but even there you're going to spend half your time just puzzling out what the hell's going on. It's a big part of the Fate fun, getting tossed into the maelstrom of chaos as everyone fights everyone else, and the cast is slowly whittled down to the last wizard standing. And given Narita's penchant for writing stories with no clear protagonist, this particular wizard battle royale could be one of the most most unpredictable and exciting in the entire franchise. Even before taking A1 Pictures' pulse-pounding action Sakuga and the brilliant direction of Shun Enokido and Takahiko Sakazume into account, not to mention the Sawano soundtrack, and I kind of feel like it goes without saying if you've seen Bakano or Durarara or anything else with Narita's name on it. But on top of that, every one of the characters is utterly brimming with delightfully eccentric personality that is equally enhanced by that animation, especially the murdering psychopaths. Fate anime are almost always good shit, but this is the good shit. If you like your serialized survival games slightly more down to earth, though, I can't recommend Shiboyugi playing death games to put food on the table enough. Set in a world where rich perverts routinely gamble with the lives of the lower classes, slightly more obviously than they do in ours, the series follows a soft-spoken young woman named Yuki who, as the title suggests, plays death games for a living with the goal of winning 99 in a row. That makes her a valuable ally to all the other gorgeous girls in gothic Lolita dress who find themselves tasked with escaping a booby-trapped mansion alongside her, only one of whom has any experience with this sort of thing besides her. But it's only a small comfort with no guarantee of survival, and even with her self-proclaimed altruistic playstyle, can any of them really trust her? The rich perverts watching are one thing, but what kind of player treats this sort of thing like a spectator sport? That's exactly the question this anime aims to answer in chilling, cinematic, almost avant-garde form. Sota Ueno demonstrated a deft directorial eye with his storyboards on the surprisingly great Days with My Stepsister, but his work here blows it out of the water, contrasting cutesy pastel imagery with the horrors to craft an unnervingly off-kilter atmosphere. Add to that the equally expert sound direction of Stepsister and Dangers in My Heart's Noriyushi Konuma, and, well, you can see and hear for yourself.
安全な別ルートがあるのかもしれませんが、見つけられないんじゃやることやるしかないですよ。そうする。
Suffice to say, no anime this season made better use of its hour-long premiere episode, which is saying a lot considering the last entry on this list, and I am very eager to hear what Konuma will do with Akane Banashi come spring. Shiboyugi is one of those anime that leaves you staring at the wall and thinking about stuff for nearly as long as you spent watching it, which not everyone's into, but if you are, you'll also probably enjoy the Darwin incident. I know I am, even if I don't fully agree with everything it has to say. I will never be a vegan. As I record this, there is hamburger grease drying in the mustache that I haven't had time to get trimmed because there's too much anime on. But I do find the ideal at the core of the philosophy that all life is born equal to be deeply compelling, and this anime explores that ideal from every logical extreme. As a human Z, a human-chimpanzee hybrid freed from the lab that created him by animal rights militants, it's only natural that 15-year-old Charlie Stein would embrace that philosophy while trying to live in a society where the sanctity of his own life isn't a default assumption. That society being America, it's equally natural he'd see some pushback to his veganism on the first day of high school, though he gets just as much from the natural world, and through his reactions to both, the show begins exploring the conditions and contradictions by which we all judge the value of our own and others' lives. Classmates find his answers to be a bit disturbing, but is that really a result of a truly alien mind, or just a regular homeschool kid? Already in episode 1, we have a smorgasbord of food for thought. Meanwhile, out in the city, extremists seeking to balance the scales by placing human life below that of animals are now plotting to use him as a tool to their own ends, regardless of what Charlie thinks, which, if the trailer is any indication, should lead to some decidedly more practical, thrilling, and unnerving applications of those ideas before too long. The Darwin incident is as close as we're likely to come to an anime adaptation of a Michael Crichton novel, and whether you'll like that is a matter of taste, but to me, it's nearly as delicious as that burger. But if those politics are too contemporary for your palate, the court intrigue of the Holy Grail of Eris might be more your speed. For all their gilded finery, houses of nobility are known dens of rats and snakes, save for that of Viscount Grail, a truly noble man who's taught his daughter Constance to prize sincerity and integrity above all else, which hasn't exactly gone great for their family, financially speaking, and when the duplicitous mistress of her fiancé of convenience attempts to take her down a peg by framing her for petty theft, it becomes an outright liability.
誰か助けて
Just when all hope seems lost, though, a new spirit takes hold of Constance, literally, and she deftly turns the tables on her accuser and several onlookers to boot with brutal rhetorical savagery. That salvation comes at a steep price, however, for the spirit in question is none other than Scarlet Castiel, the most infamous snake in the court's history, beheaded a decade ago under accusations of poisoning a princess. False accusations, as it turns out, so it could be worse, but not much worse when Scarlet's stipulation is that Constance must now avenge her mysterious death by unraveling a conspiracy that goes all the way to the nation's top and possibly beyond. Reminiscent of Yu-Gi-Oh! If the Pharaoh played slightly different games and had slightly larger titties, the Holy Grail of Eris is off to a very compelling start and shaping up to be one of the smartest villainess anime out there. Ladies don't just gotta be villainesses, though. They can also be princely hero types if they want to, or even if they don't want to, depending on their build and how husky their voices are and the expectations projected onto them by the various squeeing girls in their class. And you know what else? Being handsome princes doesn't have to stop them from being so drop-dead gorgeous that far less princely princes are like, hot damn, girl, I just want to stare at you all day and see what face you'll make next. In the Clear Moonlit Dusk is a beautiful, in every sense of the word, shoujo romance anime about all those things I just said, none of which Yoi Takiguchi is particularly happy about, if she's being completely honest. Well, maybe the guy telling her how beautiful she is and princess carrying her is kind of nice. She's still figuring out how she feels about that. Would have been nicer probably if he asked first. Also, she doesn't totally hate being cool and even a little bit manly sometimes when the folks around her need a hero to step up for them.
人を背後から狙うなんて卑怯だ卑怯だ
The fact that Ichimura-sensei thinks that's cute too, though, does, I think, bode pretty well for them in the long term, even if there's some stuff she's really got to tell him off for. I do appreciate that the feelings aren't quite so clean-cut at first, though, that he can give her those doki dokis while still believably peeving her off a little. Love is a grand thing, but it can also be something that challenges and changes how we think about ourselves in less than comfortable ways, and it's nice to see a shoujo poised to dig a little deeper into those complexities of identity while still delivering the good kush, so to speak. But what about the no thoughts, head empty shoujo enjoyers, huh? For too long, the anime industry has denied the ladies' collective craving for cute, clever, light-hearted rom-coms with the kind of peak production values we shonen battle lads take for granted. But no longer. Tamon's B-side gives you all the doki doki fua fua goodness you could ask for in a tale of not quite forbidden, but certainly ill-advised love between an idol fangirl and her Oshi, who, as she discovers when the housekeeping job she took on to fund her merch habit puts her in his apartment, isn't quite as confident and charming offstage as he is on.
ファンクラブ用に自宅での自撮り写真を撮れと言われたんですが、家だとスイッチ入らなくて、どうしたらいいですか?
Tamon Fukuhara is a gloomy, friendless ball of anxiety and self-loathing who spends every second he's not performing dreading the day that his extroverted mask will inevitably slip and ruin the illusions of every girl he's supposed to be making smile. But Utage Kinoshita isn't the sort of weak-willed fangirl who just lets the haters talk shit about her faves, even when the hater is her fave, and seeing him in such a state only redoubles her borderline psychotic drive to support him at all costs, literal and figurative. With all the pressures idols face, though, that relationship swiftly gets complicated, all the more so when she starts seeing past the equally fake personas of all his bandmates, and even more concerning than that is the growing feeling that she might actually find the gloomy version cuter? The power of Gap Moe is a terrifying thing indeed. With quick-witted timing, keen-eyed, gag-driven storyboarding, and gorgeously fluid and expressive animation, particularly in its 3D dance sequences, Tamon's B-side is as hilarious as it is heartwarming and a strong contender for the funniest and sweetest rom-com of the season, though the competition for that second title is insanely fierce. One of the best things to come out of the Jump Plus web manga platform, which is saying a lot. You and I Are Polar Opposites leverages a deceptively simple premise to brilliant effect. He's a quiet, button-down nerd. She's a bubbly, gyaru social butterfly. She rarely stops yapping, while he never says more than 2 words to almost anyone. But the most words he says to anyone by far are to her, and he has a way of getting her tongue-tied when he does. One day, she asks him to walk home together on a whim. 1 word, yes. A few more words, and several blocks later, their hands meet.
嘘。心臓の音でかすぎて耳の後ろまで脈打ってる。死ぬ？
And about 12 hours of uncharacteristically few words after that, her heart finally settles down enough to get to sleep. This is not one of those rom-coms about endless yearning. Miyu Suzuki and Yusuke Tani may be that thing in the title, but that's exactly what makes them so perfect for each other, each filling in precisely for what the other lacks. Her, a lack of courage to stand up for what she really has to say, him, an inability to make conversations sparkle. And the series wastes no time pretending they're anything other than perfect for each other, packing all the tension and catharsis that lesser rom-coms draw out for season after season of will they, won't they, into a single episode. Then we get to the good stuff, exploring feelings, learning how to be in love, navigating the complications that come with transitioning from me and her to us. The things that never come as simply as all the other rom-coms endings would lead you to believe. Of course, all that stuff is still a bit simpler than the will they, won't they dance, which is why so many rom-coms focus on that, but simple can be very worthwhile too. And when it's not quite enough, we have a wonderful cast of supporting characters with their own hang-ups and crushes and hilarious bits to keep things fresh and fun. You and I Are Polar Opposites is a wholesome good time. Very good. Made all the better by the vibrant animation of Lappentrack's adaptation. And when the chemistry is this electric, that's all a romance really needs. Isekai, on the other hand, really needs to do something to stand out right out of the gate if they want to hold my attention these days. And with its story of a noble child banished for being too underpowered by his family when actually he's secretly super OP, easygoing territory defense by the optimistic lord, production magic turns a nameless village into the strongest fortified city, didn't really have my hopes all that high going in. That immediately started to change in the opening seconds, though, with its beautifully impressionistic portrayal of corporate drudgery that shows Vanne Fertio's life before Isekai. But what really grabbed me is the OP's Azumanga Daioh type beat. Watch the vid on Patreon to hear an actual clip of the song. Bum bum ba bum ba bum bum. If you're gonna pitch an anime as easygoing, hitting that specific tone is the easiest way to convince me you know what you're doing. And as the episode continued, it cemented that impression by introducing a large but not unmanageably so cast of goofy little guys, each of whom has their own distinctly funny bits to riff on with our goofy little protag, and also each other. Lighthearted laughs abound here amid a relaxing atmosphere which persists in spite of some of the darker socio-political implications of the plot and setting. I do quite like some of those politics, though, particularly the idea that in a world where wars are won by raw magical might as much as tactics and logistics, combat spells are seen as the ultimate symbol of nobility's strength, and thus Van's mundane tradesman-level production magic is a mark of shame to the royal family. Shameful enough that even though he's a prodigy in pretty much everything else, his dad damn near kills him just to keep it secret. I always appreciate it when the reason for a hero being shunned and banished actually kinda makes sense. Easygoing territory defense is not a stupid show, or overly sanitized for that matter, but rather one that makes a deliberately zen choice to empty its head of thoughts, look away from the darker stuff, and go at its own relaxing pace. If you're feeling overwhelmed by all the other anime you've got to watch, or other non-anime related things that you don't really want to think about for at least half an hour, this one will do you wonders. At first glance, I thought Champignon Witch would offer similarly light and fluffy fantasy vibes, but it ended up carrying quite a bit more weight than I expected, with a decidedly un-Disney-like grimness about its fairy tale world. Though make no mistake, it has its Disney moments too. In terms of the tone it strikes, the closest anime I can think of is Ranking of Kings, though obviously it's quite a bit less action-packed than that, and a little lighter on Sakuga. Don't worry though, the animation and especially background art is more than good enough to bring this charming world and its denizens to life. Luna the Black Witch has lived in her little house made of poison mushrooms deep in the darkest woods for as long as any man alive can remember, and quite a bit longer than that besides. That life's been as lonely as it is long. Most folks are scared away by the poisonous fungi that spring up wherever she touches, a byproduct of her magic cleansing pollution from the environment, and even those who aren't scared perish if they ever touch her toxic flesh. But despite that, she still makes her way into town from time to time to sell the miraculous medicines she brews from her mushrooms, taking no small delight in the reactions of the townsfolk, even if they never thank her directly, and to buy the precious books that let her vicariously experience adventure and romance that she can never know. It's not just the townsfolk who are in danger of getting hurt whenever she gets too close, though, and not just because of the hunters prowling for witches who refuse to swear fealty to their crown. Despite her inhuman age and powers, Luna has a very human heart, one which craves human companionship that she will inevitably outlive, and human contact that she can never truly know. Yet, despite knowing better, she can't help pursuing those things, which is, of course, the most human thing of all. Champignon Witch is a beautifully poetic, offbeat little anime, quite unlike anything else that you'll see this season, and probably all year. Journal with Witch is equally offbeat and poetic, but in a completely different and even more compelling way. In contrast to the fantastical implications of its title, it's a decidedly down-to-earth anime. Not to say that it doesn't have its share of otherworldly imagery, but that comes mainly in the form of flights of fancy through which the characters contextualize and process their feelings about their all-too-ordinary lives. Well, ordinary isn't quite the right word. It's not every day the sister that you hated dies and you're suddenly stuck with her kids sleeping in the home office of your tiny 2-bedroom apartment. But novelist Makio and her niece Asa are doing their best to adjust to that new normal, even as they come to terms with all their complicated feelings about the family they just lost and the new one they just found. I'm making it sound all artsy and pensive, and it absolutely is, but Journal with Witch doesn't let the important and profound things it has to say about life and loss and loneliness get in the way of having fun with its deeply charming cast of characters. It's a show about mourning and processing and trying to find the right words for people who are going through it, yes, but more than that, it's about living on, talking it out, and sometimes talking around it, and the talking really is the best part of the whole show. This is some of the most subtly, beautifully real dialogue I've heard in an anime since Odd Taxi. I try to make a point of saving the best for last on these lists, and at least so far, Journal with Witch is as good as anime gets. But when 2 anime in a season are that good, my only option is to put one of them before the other. The second one was actually one of the first new things to air this season, and hot damn, did Sentence to Be a Hero ever start the year off with a bang.
女神の力には頼らねえ。いいから引っ込んでろ。
Set in a very grim, dark fantasy world where magic and technology come part and parcel, the series, as its title suggests, puts a thrilling new twist on your standard anime setup of heroes fighting demons and their kings. For starters, the Demon Blight isn't so much an evil race of domineering monsters as it is a virulent, mutagenic hive mind disease, and far from being lionized for their bravery, these heroes are criminals condemned to fend it off for the rest of their miserable lives. Which is forever, because the church that did the condemning simply will not let them die. Every time they do, their souls are dragged back from hell to rejoin the fight, leaving a little bit more of themselves behind with each trip. And even if the demons don't get them, there's a pretty good chance their wardens will, be it for disobeying orders, insufficient follow-through, or just plain not liking them. But out of all the unfortunate souls in Penal Unit 9004, and the whole hero program for that matter, Xylo Forbarts might well be the most reviled of all. A former holy knight condemned for a crime he had no choice but to commit. He fights tooth and nail to survive each hellish day, all for the slim hope of revenge on those who used and discarded him. Or tooth and magic exploding dagger, rather, which is a little more effective than nails and a whole lot more spectacular to build a fight scene around. If you enjoy over-the-top fantasy action, you will not find better this winter, and this winter has Frieren and Jujutsu Kaisen in it. But there is so much more to this series besides that. Rich world building, compelling characters, and brilliant visual storytelling. It's clearly a show with Anime of the Year ambitions, and even knowing it would be up against those titans, Studio Kai came prepared. Whether they can keep that quality up, I don't think even remains to be seen. The pilot might as well be a feature film. There is no way they can sustain that for an entire season. But even with less Sakuga in future episodes, the arresting music and art direction and sharp cinematic storyboarding are more than enough to make it a serious contender. Out of all the anime to watch this winter, this is the one. It's not the last one, though. We've still got a bargain bin to dig through, and right at the top is another clever subversion of the hero trope from the same light novel author, Scum of the Brave. Well, actually, I'd put it closer to the bottom. The concept of hero bounty hunters fighting demon lord Yakuza dons with magic drugs is pretty damn cool and unique, but the adaptation doesn't really execute on it all that well, and to be honest, given the languid pacing, I need another episode to even decide if it's bargain bin material at all, but that segue was just way too good to pass up. If you want to know what a proper top of the bargain bin show looks like, look no further than Mayonaka Heart Tune, the ASMRM anime in which a narcissistic scion to an unfathomably wealthy Zaibatsu transfers to a public high school to stalk his middle school micro-influencer crush, Apollo, who could easily be any one of the 4 cute girls in the school's broadcast club. So in order to maintain his perfect self-image, he has no choice but to fulfill his promise to make Apollo a professional vocal artist with all 4 of them by making their respective dreams of singer, VTuber, news anchor, and voice actor stardom come true. This is one of the rare harem anime where Protag-kun is far and away the best part of the entire cast, entertaining endlessly with his exuberant arrogance and psychotic perfectionism in all things from grades to bowel movements.
山吹アリス山吹財閥の御曹司日本を背負う存在故に完璧を約束された男この山吹ふつつか者ではありませんがこれからどうぞよろしく
His love interests, on the other hand, are more on the copy-paste side of things, and that's not really helped by the rapid pacing of the adaptation, which doesn't give any unique qualities that they may have any space to shine, which is why it fell just shy of being a full-on one to watch. On the other hand, psycho-stalker-centric reverse harem Hanakimi's problem is having too much copy-pasted from it. As a long-anticipated adaptation of one of the earliest cross-dressing girl in a boys' school type shoujo dealies, it suffers quite a bit from just how many of the things it inspired beat it to the anime market. Yazzie and I called out basically every plot and character beat in the first 2 episodes before they happened while we were watching it, and while we did have quite a bit of fun doing that, it never hit us with any sort of surprise that might have elevated it above the realm of tropey comfort food, even if it did pioneer a lot of those tropes and defined the comfort food recipe. In a less stacked season, it probably would have made the cut, but I'm trying to keep the main list as lean as I possibly can this time around, in deference to just how many sequels you have to watch. And as much as it hurts me personally, that also meant I had to cut The Demon King's Daughter is Too Kind, despite how susceptible I typically am to dad slop drop in the vein of Spy Family and Sweetness and Lightning. In fact, out of all the Dotarus in anime, Do-sama might well be the most adorable of all. I genuinely buy into the premise that her overwhelming cuteness poses an existential threat to her dad's evil empire. Plus, every episode so far has given us a new Same Same Shark Tear song from her, which is guaranteed to warm your heart and put a smile on your face no matter how jaded and exhausted you are. Unfortunately, the anime's direction just isn't up to snuff in delivering the more bitter moments meant to offset all that sweetness, so I can't quite justify, "Oh no, dude, don't look at me like that. It's okay, you're on the list." She's not on the list. You know what's really not on the fucking list, though? An adventurer's daily grind at age 29. I feel compelled to warn all of my fellow dad slop enjoyers away from that one, because holy shit, I have never seen an anime Usagi drop that fast before. I apologize for burdening you with that terrible knowledge, but it's a matter of public safety. If you need a little soul bleach to wash it all away, though, that's actually the name of a pretty good anime for exactly that sort of thing. A simple slice of seaside life story about a girl and her laundromat. Wash It All Away is all about the vibes, and for anyone who enjoys dry cleaning ASMR, I really cannot recommend it enough. It is coziness incarnate. But it's also based on a manga whose chief selling point was its art, and I think the anime adaptation has just a few too many rough edges to fit cleanly into the best of season list on those merits. If you prefer the work in your work-life shows a little more on the stressful side, though, Isekai Office Worker, The Other World's Books Depend on the Bean Counter, offers a decidedly unique spin on your standard portal fantasy, which you probably already got the gist of from its title. Bureaucracy and logistics enthusiasts, this one's for you. I don't even mean that ironically, actually. It's a very realistic and detailed portrayal of the differences between medieval and modern accounting that Spice and Wolf fans will doubtless get a kick out of. Though, speaking of spice, one thing the title isn't gonna warn you about is how spicy the yaoi here is. We'll have more to say about that on the hottest trash, though. And no doubt there'll be even more to say about Rollover and Die, which is, I believe, the first Yuri-oriented one of those f***ing things to get an anime adaptation. As those f***ing things go, Protag-chan's secretly OP skill is one of the few that I can actually believe seemed so bad to the hero's party that they would banish her, since you don't get many chances to figure out you have the power to reverse all the stat drops from a cursed item if the description of your ability doesn't tell you it does precisely that. Makes sense to me. And since she only gets the chance to find that out after the party mage sells her into slavery, it's also one of the few ones of those f***ing things where Protag-chan going for super edgelordy revenge feels fully justified. And surprisingly, in spite of all that, it manages to avoid crossing the line between dark and grimdark fantasy. If the anime had better pacing and didn't look kind of terrible, it might have even been main list material, but alas, the much prettier looking A Gentle Noble's Vacation recommendation is a rare double isekai about a nobleman from a fantasy world who finds himself suddenly and mysteriously transported to a slightly different fantasy world in which he's like, well, I guess if the king needs me, he'll find a way to isekai me back, and then decides to just treat the whole thing like one big vacation with his new bodyguard adventuring buddy who he meets wandering around town. It's kind of just a chill, low-stakes slice of RPG life thing about two bros hanging out, crawling dungeons and whatnot, and while the story hasn't really grabbed me on any deeper level than that, it is a really good time. Looking at the cute little dude on its poster, I was expecting similar chill vibes out of Reincarnated as a Dragon Hatchling, but I found myself pleasantly surprised by the level of attrition that the aforementioned cute little dude faces in trying to level up into something a little more threatening. It's Kinda light on story so far, but if you like your lit RPGs on the crunchier side of things, I think it might just do it for you. Though not quite as much as Hell Mode, the hardcore gamer dominates in another world with garbage balancing, which is one of the few isekai game systems that has ever made me say, damn, I'd love to play around with that in an actual game. To sum it up, Protag Kun's summoner class allows each cute little critter he summons to give him a different stat buff. So, by playing smart and making good use of his limited mana pool, he can min-max his build for any given situation, even though his overall stats are kinda garbo. Neat idea. I also think it's super neat that he starts as a literal medieval serf, and his goal is to raise his entire family out of poverty instead of just making himself the coolest, strongest dude around. We stan a pro-social Protag Kun in this basement. We're also big on pro-social messaging, so it was nice to see more than one bit of blind representation in this season's lineup of fantasy anime. And even better, one of those anime was actually pretty decent. The Invisible Man and his soon-to-be wife is about a private eye who can't be seen, and his stenographer who can't see, navigating the ins and outs of love in a wacky world full of monsters, aliens, furries, Oni, you name a made-up species, they've probably hired him to track down their cheating spouse before. This is another one of those romance anime that wastes absolutely no time getting the actual romance moving, and a pretty darn cute one at that, but that's kinda all it is. It's nowhere near as engaging as you and I are polar opposites. And sadly, I have to say the same for Kaya-chan Isn't Scary, a horror story about the world's most powerful psychic 6-year-old attending the world's most haunted kindergarten, which is pretty cute, but true to its title, not scary at all. And not just for the typical production value related reasons that most horror anime aren't scary, it's also just not well directed. In spite of that though, there is something compelling about the premise that does make me really want to check out the manga, and since my fellow horror anime fans are generally starved for content, I figured you guys might appreciate the heads up that it exists. But speaking of not spookin', last and actually least for once, Dead Account isn't strictly speaking a good anime. As shonen battle type stuff goes, it's kind of predictable. Protag's just another bland nice guy, which is the last thing that I expected to say when I heard that he was a rage-baiting professional YouTube troll, but he's only doing that to pay for his dying sister's miracle surgery, you see. And he stops doing it almost immediately because of the most obvious plot twist that you can see coming from a million miles away. So, why am I even talking about it? Because it's about a team of teenage combat exorcists fighting evil ghosts from the internet with the power of flame bait and a literal banhammer. That's why. The Megumi's special attack is literally called political lynching. It is one of the best bad ideas I have seen get turned into anime in ages, and I am here for it. As for all the good ideas that got turned into anime this season though, here's the complete list of ones to watch, plus everything in the bargain bin, and where you can watch all of them. Though, while I've got you here, I'd also like to very quickly recommend checking out the new Wit Studio original anime, Love Through a Prism, a gorgeous, atmosphere-drenched period drama about a Japanese exchange student studying art and possibly finding love on the gaslit streets of Edwardian London, which, unfortunately, as a big Netflix batch release, I can't actually put on the main list. I mean, I guess I could, it's my list, but I don't really feel comfortable giving first impression when the entire show is out. I don't know. I could probably, it's good. The first episode's really good. You should definitely watch it. And if it was weekly, I would have put it on the main list. But you know, I just can't do that. I don't feel like doing that. And also, unfortunately, as a Netflix release, it's got absolutely no promotion from Netflix, so here's me doing their job for them, even though, again, not the type of thing we typically cover here. Anyway, I'm Geoff Thew, your guide to anime's hidden gems, signing out, and finally going on a vacation that I desperately need. Bye!